Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, and I want to talk about John Krasinski's movie If, Imaginary Friends, and how it connects to our processing of intangible fighters. And what I mean by this is, the wizard, the rogue, the fighter, the cleric, these multiple identities that we possess once we become a dragon master. Yeah, really as a dragon master. Do dungeon masters connect to their dungeon master characters the way that dragon masters connect to dragon master characters? Not really, right? Like dungeon masters have a thousand different dungeon master characters. Sometimes they don't even name them, right? So they're not gonna do what I've been talking about. What a dungeon master does, what a dragon master does, with a player character. So what we're talking about here is watching the sunset on 30 worlds, right? So what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about your Goblin Shop game where you're really concerned about getting your next feat so you can do another 12 points of damage. I'm talking about, like, I have this character Beryl the Turtle Wizard, right? And other characters as well, but mostly with this character where the campaign, Beryl died, right? But I will often just sit on the wharf at Waterdeep and watch the ships come in as the sun rises, right? Like this type of living in a character whenever you wish, and using their sensations, their memories, as much as you wish, as deeply as you wish, really connecting with these characters. It's a profound, deep thing, and it's completely alien to what most people experience. It's very, very different, right? So this movie, If, I'm incredibly blessed. Appreciate your patience for me getting to the point here. This is a little complex. So this movie, If, it was John Krasinski's film, and I honestly think it was intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually dangerous. What do I mean by that? I don't think he meant to be dangerous in this way, but he raised incredibly important questions and had no answers, and really kind of created a position where it might get really strange for some people. And so I actually I'm incredibly blessed to be part of the creator community here at 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 YouTube. And I was watching another creator. Her name is Marguerite Fowler, and she did a review for the movie If. And she did a pretty bog standard review. It was a good review. I enjoyed it, and it was her personal experience with the film. But then she said, "Did you guys notice this? Where, like, this movie kind of brought out the idea of what if a adult human was talking to an imaginary friend? How would that even work?" And you're like, "Yeah, you're right. That's like a really good point. That, like, you're bringing this up and you're talking about it, but you didn't do any of the work to actually give any real answers or even consider this question, right? Like, Bobby Moynihan did a really good job in this of showing, like, a person reconnecting with their imaginary friend. And he was like, "Oh, I'm encouraged for this business meeting." And you're like, "Wait a second, man. You got, like, a second identity there, and you're talking to them. And no one else in our society does this." So here's my question: who is actually prepared to answer these questions, right? So let's dig into this. What groups would possibly deal with this? So first of all, in my humble opinion, you can write off every psychologist who was ever born. And the reason why is, why wouldn't they be appropriate to dig into this question and deal with this issue, right? Well, they already have, like, and they have a word for it. To my understanding, that's where the term schizophrenia came from. They were like, "Hey, these people are manifesting multiple identities. They're talking with different personalities." And so we put them in a box, and then we put them in a building with orderlies. Like, that's pretty horrendous in my humble opinion, right? And it's an outrageous failure at processing people who want to deal with multiple identities. It's pretty abominably horrible, right? So who is the correct community to deal with this? This is my humble opinion, and I understand this is shocking. I actually think the Dungeons and Dragons community is the best community to deal with people who have multiple identities and have gone forward into what I called manifold sentience, where we can speak with multiple identities, we feel with multiple identities, we think with multiple identities, we have spiritual constructs, we have different spiritual beliefs in different entities, and they're all within us, right? And the reality is, we were never afraid of this. We never said, "Oh, hey, Sally, I see you over there, and you're a female human, and you're a dwarf male, and because of that, we're going to put you in a room with an orderly," right? Like we have a tolerance for this. We have an openness for this, and we're willing to jump in and have these conversations, right? And and Gary Gygax literally made a space for it, a powerful space for it, a kind space for it, a tolerant space for it, right? An understanding space for this. And I actually want to say, I guess that's exactly what John Krasinski was doing. So I take it back. I don't think it was intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually dangerous. I think it was intellectually, emotionally, and spiritually ambitious without the answers. And that's the difference between John Krasinski and Gary Gygax. I think Gary Gygax legitimately had answers to these questions, like powerful answers that he would tell us when he was alive, mastering the dungeon and beyond, and that he is speaking every day from his grave. I actually think Gary Gygax is, and this is why Dungeons and Dragons is so important. When you look at Gary Gygax, you see a man who positioned his life to speak louder from the grave than he did when he was standing on the earth, right? And I think we get lessons from him every day now, right? From his legacy, right? From what he did while he was here, and it echoes and it changes. And I think what's coming from his dead mouth is more important than what was coming from his alive mouth. And I understand that is a shocking statement, and frankly, I understand. I'm having a conversation now with you that everyone will be having 5 to 10 years from now. And I get in a lot of trouble on the internet for this, because people have very differing, odd responses to me having these future talks, right? But everything I was talking about 5 years ago, that Dungeons and Dragons is more than a game, in the Lego instruction booklet, they literally printed, increasingly Dungeons and Dragons is being talked about as a therapeutic tool. Like, it's right in the Lego book. I was saying that you could improve, change, and transform 5 years ago, right? And everything I'm saying here is going to be talked about 5-10 years from different people, right? And so I do think he was ambitious, but he didn't have the answers. That's John Krasinski, but Gary did. Every single word you just heard is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing, and have a fetch millennium.